So I've decided to do a follow-up to my latest video, Ground Zero Mosque Myths Debunked. Now I wrote in the description to that video that that was going to be my last video on the Ground Zero Mosque, but I've decided since there are enough myths, I'm going to do another one. And I don't really see it as another video on the subject, I see it more as a continuation, an adjunct. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. If you don't believe me, then you don't have to stay here. Unsubscribe, I've got almost 5,000 of you. Individually, you all mean very little to me. So the first myth I have lined up for you is as follows. They're building a mosque on Ground Zero! Again, this is one of those myths that doesn't really need much explaining. It simply isn't true. It's not being built on Ground Zero. It's being built 2 blocks away. It's also one of those myths where I have to say, even if it was being built on Ground Zero, so what? Hundreds of Muslims died in the September 11th bombings. Bombings? They weren't bombings. Hundreds of Muslims died in the 9/11 attacks. Are they not allowed to be recognised? Or did they have something to do with it? But again, this is all assuming that it is being built on Ground Zero, which it isn't. So moving on. Myth number 2. You can see Ground Zero from where they're building it. That's just wrong. This myth seems to have arisen when people were proven wrong about the first myth. They're building a mosque on Ground Zero! No, they're not! Oh, well you can still see Ground Zero from where they're building it. No, you can't. Now the user, RaymondCorrigan, did a really good video about this. And you should definitely go and watch that video, because it explains it much better than I'm about to. I'm just going to give you an overview. Link in the... I don't want to call it a cock bar. Link in the penis bar. Link in the fucking... balls bar. Link in the general direction of my penis. Anyway, the proposed building is going to be 13 stories high. Even from the top floor, you can't see Ground Zero. But again, even if you could, so what? How is that offensive? You can see Ground Zero from the top of this building. Oh, but because it's an Islamic community centre built by moderate Muslims, it's offensive. Good going there, morons. Now, interestingly enough, some people, Pat Condell, said that the site was specifically chosen so that you can see Ground Zero from there. Again, as some kind of slap in the face. This brings me to my third and final myth of this video. They chose that property just to piss us off! No, they didn't. If you simply go onto the Wikipedia entry for Part 51 and go down to the heading Purchase and Investors, the first few sentences read as follows. In July 2009, the real estate company and developer Soho Properties purchased the building and property at 47 Park Place for $4.85 million in cash. Soho Properties chairman and CEO is a real estate developer Sharif El Gamal. Initially, El Gamal had planned to build a condominium complex at the site, but was convinced by Imam Faisal Rauf's idea for a cultural centre with a prayer space. So the idea that that space was chosen specifically to incite ire and wrath from right-wingers and bigots seems rather unlikely, considering the person who bought it planned to make it into a block of flats, to use my English vernacular. Cheerio, mate! That was Australian. Even I get us mixed up. Whatever, fuck Australians, they're all convicts. Moving on. Now I suppose that you could make the argument that Sharif El Gamal, the guy who initially bought the property, was convinced by Faisal Rauf that it would be a good place to build something of an Islamic nature because Imam Faisal Rauf is a horrible human being, a nasty, filthy, dirty raghead. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. However, given some of the things I mentioned in the last video, I think most notably the fact that the project has a board of directors that has Christians and Jews on it, again, that seems really unlikely. At that point, it just starts to seem very conspiracy-y. You're just basically accusing Imam Faisal Rauf of being a liar, which is a completely different argument. And also, as I've said, not that likely. At the very least, not in the context of building an Islamic community centre. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. Alright, so hopefully this will be the last video on the Ground Zero Mosque. And in doing the research for these myths, I really have learned that a lot of the opposition to this centre is coming from people who are entirely ignorant of the facts, who have done no research into it whatsoever. Anyway, thanks for watching, see you later.